Hi everyone, and welcome to this Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Introducing End-to-End Process webinar. In this webinar, I will introduce Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations upgrades, how they are different from previous upgrades as we knew it, what changes were brought by cloud and extensions, and how you as a partner should execute upgrades in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations world. So first of all, allow us to introduce ourselves. So today you have two presenters. Currently speaking is Paulus. So I'm Paulus Brizgis. I am leading Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations developer and team lead at Refactoring. My experience with Dynamics 365 and with AX2012 ranges back to 8 years, and I have successfully executed quite a number of upgrades and also hosted quite a number of webinars. And today with me, I'm honored to have Germantas Gaurilčikas. He is a representative from Microsoft. So Germantas, would you mind to give a few words about yourself?
Sure, thank you first of all, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone who is listening. And so I'm a partner development manager in Microsoft, working with partners across the Baltics, and many of them are Dynamics partners. So I do have that pleasure and experience working with Dynamics partners as well as One-Click Factory, and trying together to achieve success in the cloud era as well together with the partners. So and this is as well lasting already for 3 years. So a lot of fun things happened, and a lot of fun things are in the future for us together.
Okay, thank you, Germantas. So let's not wait, and let's have a look at what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, Germantas will give his news on Dynamics 365 product updates. And then we're gonna proceed with the main topics for the webinar. So first, I'm gonna talk about upgrades in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations era, how and why upgrades are currently changed. Then I'm gonna shortly talk about how to prepare for Finance and Operations upgrades. Then I'm gonna give my insights and a short project plan that we are using internally on how to execute Finance and Operations upgrades and how to overcome the possible challenges. And lastly, I'm going to share several experiences and lessons learned from our upgrade projects. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session, so feel free to provide your questions anytime. Shortly about One-Click Factory. So you might be wondering why One-Click Factory is hosting this webinar. One-Click Factory is an ISV development center, so we are working closely with Microsoft. And over the last year, we have successfully delivered more than 100 upgrades, and overall, we have more than 500 upgrades. So we feel we have experience needed, and we want to share that experience with all of the partners regarding the upgrades. And last thing to note before starting, if you have a question, feel free to write it down in the chat window. And as I previously said, in the end of the webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session, and I'm going to address each of those questions. So let's not wait, and let's start with the first topic. So Germantas, would you mind to cover the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance Operations project update?
Sure, let's kick it off.
Yeah, I gave you a presenter rights.
Okay, let me see if it works. Okay, like this. Good. So first of all, thank you for the invite, and I would like to use the opportunity to thank basically One-Click Factory for a great work they're doing together with the partners, and definitely helping them to transform in this interesting changes and transformation time for the partners to transform from let's say on-prem business to cloud business for Dynamics 365. So one more time, thank you. And before I'll go to as well to sharing my own insights, I would like to share a little bit of the momentum, what is happening in the worldwide market around Dynamics 365. And I would like to start from saying that Dynamics is a really high priority within the Microsoft. So you'll definitely hear a lot of my team members across the globe going to you and listening to you and sharing as well all the methodology, and we'll definitely try to help you on landing the first deals or new deals to, at the customer side, which is around the Dynamics 365 platform. But nevertheless, we do see a massive market for Dynamics, upcoming market. Currently, in the last fiscal year for Microsoft, it was already $2.45 billion, and the cloud mix of it was a 50% already. So that 50% is basically coming a lot of the Western Europe and US and other more cloud mature markets. It's not the same situation more or less in Central Eastern Europe or more to the east side, but we are going there. And a lot of the customers really uses Dynamics 365 applications. As you can see, 91% of the Fortune 500 companies are using Dynamics 365 or Power Platform. So this is a massive achievement. And we are as well spreading across to other customers and to other areas as well. Okay, trying to switch the slides. Good, that works. So, and Dynamics 365 is not anymore only a standalone product. It's more around the platform. And what we see is a momentum around the Power Platform. So, and we really encourage the partners to make a second step, because we consider that the first step was starting and adopting the Power BI and business analytics practice. But now we see a lot of value in the Power Platform and how the partners could utilize at their customers and sell the value of the Power Platform. Finding out different kind of scenarios at the customers, proposing them, and extending the functionality and capabilities of the Dynamics 365 platform as well on top. So this is a really vital thing, how you can be successful in the cloud business as well, starting with the Power Platform. And encourage as well all the partners, if they haven't done it yet or started anything around the Power Platform, is to find the scenario and start from themselves within your own partner organization, within your own company, just to get the practice and bring it to the market once you start doing something around it. Then to elaborate a little bit more about how Dynamics is not anymore a standalone product, and it's not anymore a standalone cloud for Microsoft. We consider it in Microsoft, within the Microsoft, that we have three clouds. So Microsoft 365, which is all around the modern workplace, Teams, and Office 365. Then we have, of course, the powerful infrastructure as Microsoft Azure, and then is the Microsoft Dynamics 365. So Dynamics 365 is not anymore as well a standalone product. It is seamlessly, it can seamlessly work with other products and like scope out in many other projects as well. So and this is a really must in order to be successful in selling new Dynamics 365 finance and operation projects, but at the same time as selling upgrades to Dynamics 365 finance and operations. Because if what we see, and I'll start sharing my insights, that the partner should utilize the full platform despite on focusing only on finance and operations. And of course, there is a challenge, but there is a massive opportunity as well, which comes with it. So firstly, what we suggest and what I see from my last 6 and 12 months experience while working with those new upgrade projects is that some of the partners are not that closely familiar with the change which is happening around the cloud licenses. So I encourage as well to get more familiar with CSP, which is Cloud Solution Provider Program, meaning that basically on the legacy Dynamics partners had their own direct channel with the Microsoft and were not required to work through a distributor, which is one of the options in the CSP. So, and this is a kind of a new setup and a surprise sometimes if you haven't dealt already with any kind of a cloud licensing. So I really encourage you to get familiar with the CSP program through a disti or through your Microsoft representative. Then if we talk about that, other thing which you have to be aware, especially when you talk about the upgrades with the customers, about the transition pricing and licensing. Because Microsoft offers for customers who were paying the enhancement plan all the time, special prices for upgrading their ERP system to finance and operation system as well. So I encourage you to get familiar with the pricing, because once you are familiar, you'll be much more able to explain to the customers as well how you can how they can migrate to the cloud and in what better conditions they can do that compared to the regular pricing and regular offers which Microsoft provides. And then again, I want to utilize and emphasize that the platform is a mandatory thing, because when we talk about maybe even 2012 migration to FNO, and if we talk only about that product to product, it's sometimes not that easy to sell that value to the customer, because it has to be some kind of a specific scenario why the customer then what kind of additional values the customer can get of the upgrade project. So what we see from the practical perspective is that the partners who really communicates out the value and of the full Dynamics 365 platform are more successful in landing net new projects and new deals together with the customers, and they have much more upgrade projects. And this probably as well requires some engagements with other partners who maybe if you within the organization don't have a customer relationship management competency, then as well some of the partner-to-partner collaboration is required as well to be considered before proposing to the end customer the full project and full scope and the full value of the Dynamics 365 platform. At the same time, the platform brings a lot of new opportunities to the project and to you as a partner, and a lot of new value to the customer as well. So just you need to think, and I encourage you to think on your strategy and how you propose the customers to migrate. Then additional step is that product versus project. Basically, we see a lot of partners being more successful who are proposing the upgrade as to their currently enlarged and created product versus the project, because that really dramatically as well can save the customer some time to value, and this is as well really more easily a repeatable business for you as a partner when you sell not a project but a product. So if you have the product and you can productize it, which is not maybe yet packaged, then I really encourage you doing that, because you have much higher chances of closing the deal with a success. Last but not least as well, from one of the observations what we have in the market, the partners who see what kind of challenges they encounter when they talk about on-premise installations and how much they are really complicated. We see that more and more partners takes cloud-first strategy, meaning that they offer the cloud solution to the customers and cloud upgrade path to the customers as a first option, and then only if there is no like a serious complication why the customer cannot utilize cloud, they only then take it as a second path and a second scenario. And then, so what I want to finish with before handing back to Paulus is that there is no second without first. So meaning that you need to have get the first project, and first projects are always tricky and not always easy, and that's why we have as well One Click Factory here there for you to help in order to get the first project experience and first project success, in order you could have second and third projects as well. So I really encourage to invest to first projects, because then you will get a different kind of a trust from the customers. So start with first, and maybe don't have big expectations that it will be very easy, but I encourage you to have help from others. Either it's One Click Factory, either it's Microsoft on the first project. Let's invest together, and let's grow the cloud business together, and some upgrades from old versions FNO to newest version. Thank you.
Thank you, Germantas, for the positive note. And
oh, so very last thing. Okay, so yeah, I have one more slide to go, and this is about the learning. So what we saw in the market is that the technical people and technical partner people have really higher readiness than other people, like meaning from the sales organization and marketing organization. I really encourage to use the free of charge learning paths available in Microsoft website, which can as well and can grow the competency of the not only consultants but the salespeople as well. So use those opportunities. There are really great learning paths on Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. So if you are looking where to know more, this is where you find some more information. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Germantas, for good advice and also for these handful insights on the Dynamics 365 market that you have. So let's move on to the webinar, and let's start with the second topic that we have today. Is so in order to understand how upgrades are different nowadays, we need to have a look first at how upgrades have changed with Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. So in order to compare, we first need to have a look at the how upgrades were looking in previous versions, including AX2012. So this is how I see the upgrades in previous versions. First, you had to move code. So you used available tools to move old code to new version. Then you merge the code, so basically merging object changes to new version, resolving conflicts, and redesigning deprecated parts. Then you had to move data. So you had to move data from old version to new version using some standard tools with adjusting them and running standard tools to move all that data to new version. And lastly, fixing, testing, and going live. So that's how upgrades looked like in previous versions. Now with Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, there's a new step, which is called refactoring. What does refactoring mean? Refactoring is moving to extensions. Why is it needed? Upgrade to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations includes this new step, and it's needed because upgrade tools produce modifications in overlaid models. And as you might know, overlaid modifications are not allowed anymore since Dynamics 365 release. Now, how does the upgrade looks like in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations with this new step? So the path is pretty much similar, but in the middle you have this refactoring. So the whole path of upgrading to finance and operations looks like this. First, you still migrate the code. So you use all of the available tools to move code from new version to new version, from old version to new version. In that way, you produce overlaid models. Then you perform the merging. And after that, as overlaid modifications are not allowed anymore, you have to refactor. So either you refactor the overlayers or you redesign where it's not possible. Now with data migration, again, there are tools as they were in previous ones. You have to adjust these tools to reflect data structure customizations. You have to run these tools to get all data on new version. And if you are migrating from 2009, you can use intermediate versions and still have a path that's fully covered by tools. And after these migrations are complete, you test, fix, and go live. So as we are now aware of how upgrades in finance and operations might look like, let's have a look at how to prepare for finance and operations upgrade. So basically, there are three different paths as we see them at Refactoring to move to finance and operations. First path is to upgrade, second path is to migrate, and third path is to re-implement. By upgrading path, we mean that you run these standard tools and you upgrade all of your previous solution to a new version. Migrating basically means that you pick which modifications you want to upgrade and you still use those tools, and you re-implement the pieces which are missing. And the last path, re-implementation, that's the straightforward one. You basically dump the modifications that you have in your source version and re-implement everything from scratch. As we are now familiar with the different strategies and approaches, we also need to talk about different factors of selecting different upgrade paths. So there's quite a number of factors that you have to take into consideration. First of the factors that we suggest in taking into consideration is business or reorganization or restructure. So you have to take into account whether your organization have some changes, whether you have changes in business processes, whether you have changes in critical setups such as accounting structures and everything. So you have to take that into account, and based on that, pick the right path, whether you still need to migrate your old solution or it's not relevant anymore. Maybe in new version it's covered already by standard. Second thing that you need to consider is database size and quality. This is critical for data migration. So you need to evaluate what kind of quality of data you have, and how big your database size is, and whether you need this data, whether you are good to purge this data, remove historical transactions. So you have to consider this, because that's gonna later influence on what kind of data migration approach you will take. The next thing that you need to consider, which is gonna affect the migration time quite critically, is customizations and new functionality. So how many customizations do you have? How critical are they? Are they intrusive? And are they covered maybe by functionality already? Also, you need to evaluate your ISV solutions. Do these ISV solutions have their solution in a new version? Are they maybe already covered by standard in a new version? Or do you have any business critical integrations, and are these business critical integrations still possible in finance and operations? So you need to evaluate all of these factors when making a decision on how to migrate to finance and operations. And lastly, of course, you need to have in consideration the appropriate budget and timeline and downtime limitations for cutover, and also how many internal resources you have and how many external resources you plan to allocate. So with all of the factors in mind, let's have a look at the different paths that we suggest for migration from AX2009 and older versions, and later we'll look at AX2012. So for AX2009, we have three possible paths that we see. First path is to re-implement. So basically take all of your old changes, analyze them, and then dump them, analyze the business requirements, and re-implement the new changes in new system. The second path is to migrate. So as I previously said, migrating basically means cherry picking what you still need in new version and migrating those changes and also that data to new version. And last path is to upgrade. So from 2009 and from older versions, you have to go via AX2012. So that includes two steps: upgrading to 12, then upgrading to finance and operations. Now, who do we recommend those transitions to? Now, the re-implementation path we recommend for those who have their solution that are not relevant anymore. Now, the path number 2, migration path, we recommend those for customer solutions if they have their solution heavily modified and data is consistent. So this approach allows you to bring forward only selected data and only selected modifications. And who do we recommend the upgrade path to? Well, if customer solution is moderately customized, If data migration is more painful than code migration, then we recommend upgrade, because upgrade will basically keep you safe from the data migration problems, because everything is migrated and it's migrated using standard tools. This path potentially requires double testing because the AX2012 intermediate version is included, and it potentially has a higher risk because of that. Now we talked about the AX2009, and next let's have a look at the AX2012 paths. So with the AX2012, we basically see two paths. First is to re-implement, and the second path is to upgrade. We recommend re-implementation path for customers, for customer solutions who have, well, the very intrusively customized ones. And this path allows still for different pieces of functionality to be re-implemented. And also this path gives you a fully customizable data migration. And the upgrade path, we recommend that for those who have these changes that are basically standalone, who are less intrusive. And this path is fully covered by Microsoft tools, both the code and data upgrade. And yeah, with minor modifications, you can achieve the upgrade in a quite a good time frame, as we have from our experience. Now, as we are familiar with different paths to transition, let's have a look at the next section. And in this section, I'm going to talk about how to execute the finance and operations upgrades. So in the next slide, I'm going to share a small project plan, a high-level project plan that we are successfully using in our upgrade projects. So how to execute the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations project? First of all, you need to perform analysis. In the analysis phase, you need to analyze what kind of solution do we have in the source version, what are the business needs, and you need to evaluate all of the factors that I previously talked about. When you're done with the analysis and you made the decision on how you are migrating to finance and operations, then your way basically could be split in two paths. First path is the upgrade piece. So in the upgrade path, first you have to perform code upgrade for data structure. Then you need to perform data upgrade in order for testing people to already have what data to test on. And lastly, you need to execute the biggest part, which is the code upgrade, refactoring, and implementing changes. After you're done with that, you can do basic upgraded object testing. And if testing fails, you can go back to the code upgrade, data upgrade, and code upgrade steps. Now, as part of your team is working on upgrades, the other part of your team can work on the second track, which is customization redesign. So customization redesign path consists of two things: gap fit, and that means identifying gaps and producing the fits. So we have to perform analysis of what pieces will still be there missing after the upgrade is done, and you have to develop those modifications. After you're done with both upgrade and the upgrade testing is successful, and after you're done with customization development and customization testing is successful, then you can merge those two branches and perform a full functional testing. And finally, when you have successfully fully functional tested the solution and the solution is ready for go live, you can go to proceed for the go live. So that was the project plan that we are using in One-Click Factory together with our partners to migrate finance and operations solutions. Next, I'm going to share some insights in each of these phases, what the attention has to be paid for. So in the analysis phase, there are a few things to note. First, modifications in current solution version do not necessarily have to be written off. So in the analysis phase, you might identify that the modifications in your previous versions are perfectly fine in new version and they are really relevant. and they are compatible with new versions, so they don't necessarily have to be written off the first step of the analysis. The second thing to consider is that each and every modification has to be evaluated for relevance in the new version. So you have to evaluate whether whether your modifications are still relevant, and if it's possible, whether it's possible to get rid of them, because in that way you can save quite some time on the upgrade itself. You have to evaluate your modifications with the extensions in mind. So you have to evaluate whether the things that you are doing in your old system are still possible with the currently available extension technologies in finance and operations. And lastly, we at One Click Factory provide a service which is called Best Path Assessment Service. And in the service, we evaluate existing modifications, and we evaluate the cost of lifting them to finance and operations. So basically, what we do here is we take a customer solution, we evaluate the solution with our in-house analysis, then we perform, then we meet the team who are solution owners, so both from partner side and from customer side, and discuss which pieces of the solution are still relevant. And after that, we are quite comfortable to provide you with the report and with the actual number of hours, how much, and the suggestions also, how much effort it would require to lift your existing solution to new version. So that was about the analysis phase. Now I have also a few insights about the code migration phase that we had in the project plan. So there are a few things to note in the about the code migration phase. First, LCS tools can be used for the initial code lift. So you don't have to copy and paste the code from old version to new version. There are tools which help quite tremendously. Second thing to note is data structure modifications have to be upgraded first. You want to unblock the data migration, and you want to have the data as soon as possible in order to start testing. And you also want your data structure to be upgraded first, because you want that in the gap fit stream, people start building modifications on this data structure. And last thing to consider, and especially having in mind the project plan, that changes refactoring is fully manual work. So you have to allocate enough technical people to perform this work within the project timeline. Next phase that I wanted to talk about is change development phase. So as I mentioned earlier, first thing to note is that for this phase, prerequisite is upgrade the data structure. So you want to build your changes on the already existing data structure and do not duplicate the data structure that you already have. Second thing is that functional fit development can be executed in parallel to upgraded code refactoring. So you can have part of your team working on upgrade, and the second part of your team can work on new changes development in parallel. They don't have to wait till the upgrade stream is complete. And the next thing, integration related developments can also be executed in parallel, as they are considered the changes in the same way as fits. And purely a technical recommendation, separate branches are recommended for upgrade path and for change development path. And the last phase that I have some notes on is data migration phase. So for data migration phase, the prerequisite is upgrade the data structure. The important thing to note is that standard tools are available for data upgrade from AX2012 to R3, from AX2012 R3 to finance and operations. If you have older versions, it's fine. You can use the AX2012 R3 as an intermediate version. Another thing to note is test data migrations should be executed in one box development environment, so you don't need to execute them in UAT or in production or not. The development box is quite sufficient. And we see the reason why I noted this, because we see quite a lot of confusion and quite a lot of questions on this topic. The next thing is that UAT and go live migration have to be executed in cloud hosted box. So this is to clarify what kind of migrations have to be executed, and that helps to plan your resources and also your environments properly. And the last thing to note, the actual production migration, you need Dynamics engineering team to make a request for them, and they will perform the go live migration to production. And last notes that I have about testing phase. So from our experience is that, first of all, testing should be executed in iterations. Don't wait for all of the upgrade or all of the development to complete before starting testing, because you want to catch these errors as soon as possible, and testing is possible in iterations. Separate testing for upgraded pieces and for new implementation pieces should be executed, as I already had on my project plan. And combined UAT testing for end-to-end system testing must be executed when both of the change development and the upgrade paths are complete and meet together for the full system testing. Now, in the last part of this presentation, I will share our experiences and lessons learned from 4 different finance and operational projects that we had. So I will give a short insight about lessons learned for each of the phases that we just named. So first of all, some insights about the analysis phase. So we had one partner who came to us with a huge AX2009 solution and customer solution, which was based mostly about the procurement. So what did we knew before we went there? We knew that the large number of modifications are there, and that the historical data is critical for them, because they are obliged by the laws that they have to keep all of the historical data for the last 10 years. So they will need data migration from 2009. That's what we knew. When we went there, so they bought a best path assessment, and we went there and we analyzed what they had. And what we found is that their modifications were not intrusive. So they had lots and lots of modifications on procurement and on finance and on HR, but they are not intrusive. And the second thing that we found is that while their modifications were still done on 2009, they are completely irrelevant in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, because the users are used to those modifications, and these modifications are still not covered by standard. So their modifications are still relevant. So what decisions were made after the analysis? We made a decision to perform a code upgrade. So we made a partially upgrade to 2012 R2 to utilize LCS tools, and then move to finance and operations. And for the data migration, the decision was also taken to utilize the standard upgrade tools and to migrate data via 2012. So the main lesson learned from this project and from this analysis phase is that while reimplementation might seem an obvious approach because the solution is huge and it's on 2009, if business processes are well executed and still not replaced in target version, even for 2009, upgrade is still a very valid option. And that's how we proceeded with this project. Now, next lesson that we learned is in the code upgrade phase. So we had an ISV solution, which we had to upgrade from AX2012 R2 to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. What we knew, what were the pain points, and what we knew before we started the process is that they have a large number of modifications. They had over 2,009 new objects. So that's a large modification in the AX2012 world. And the second thing that we knew is that this ISV solution is based is focused about integrations, and the AX2012 integrations are mostly deprecated in finance and operations. So And the last thing that we knew is that they need a one-on-one functionality that is similar as they had in AX2012. They wanted to have the similar functionality in finance and operations. So when we did analysis, we found actually that modifications that they have are basically standalone. That means they are not modifying the standard objects at all. And the second thing regards the integrations, they are using custom DLLs in AX2012, and custom DLLs are compatible in finance operations. So we made a decision to migrate the code using standard LCS tools, and as they wanted to look and feel the same way as it looked like in 2012, we did a redesigning of forms to match finance and operations design requirements. So lesson learned from this one: a smooth transition is still possible to Dynamics 365 finance and operations, and it can be actually quite inexpensive in this very case. The next lesson that we learned is from reimplementation phase. So we had a reimplementation of reworked AX2012 R2 Customer collection framework in an upgrade project. What we knew before is that it's heavily modified. We knew that there are zero documentation, and we knew that these modifications are business critical, so we are not going like that. What we found, unfortunately, when we had a look, is that these modifications are largely intrusive. So that means reimplementation, right? So we made a decision to reimplement these intrusive pieces, and we made a decision to reuse the existing AX2012 code pieces in the reimplementation process. So lesson learned from this one: while reimplementation is the only way to go, there is still a value in bringing the old code to new version, as it can be reused in the reimplementation process. So yeah, the reimplementation is still not as bad as it might look like. And the last lesson that we learned is in data migration phase. So we had a 2009 customer solution, and they wanted to have a data migration with critical timeline and with cleanup, and also with remapping of master data. So what we knew before we went there, we knew that they have critical timeline. We know that they want master data, but they want to migrate, but they want to remap it and change it. And we knew that they need historical transactions in the target version. So when we did analysis, what we found and what we decided is that data has to be migrated via AX12 using standard tools, because they need historical data. And we also figured out that cleanup is the best executed in the copy of source environment, so in order to save time. And what decisions were made? First decision was regards data, to use the standard tools via R3. The second decision regarding cleanup, we decided to execute the cleanups in copy of source to save migration time. And also to save time, we decided to apply scripts at the last step when data has landed in finance and operations. So lessons learned from this one: standard migration tools can be used even for complex data migrations and can save critical migration time. While before it looked like an obvious that this is going to be a custom migration, we were still able to utilize the standard tools, and they saved us quite a lot of time because they run quite fast. So overall, what lessons we have learned from our upgrade projects? While reimplementation might seem an obvious path, there are multiple reasons to still consider upgrade. First reason, end users are accustomed to modifications or source system. Also, modifications are probably still not covered by standard functionality, so you might migrate them. And there's a relevance in migrating them. And also, in most cases, project costs will be significantly lower to reimplement. And lastly, even intrusive modifications can be reimplemented with a pinch of creativity. So these are the lessons that we have learned from all of our upgrade projects. So with this positive note, I would like to move to questions and answers session. And the question is as following. So is it possible to upgrade from AX2012 R2 and use standard LCS tools or standard tools are only available for AX2012 R2. As far as I'm aware, and the way that we are executing the upgrades, yes, well, unfortunately, the tools are only available for R3. But as you might know, if you have executed upgrades from R2 to R3, it's not really that critical. And upgrades from in-place upgrades from R2 to R3 are quite easy and not really time-consuming. So when we have R2 or earlier upgrades, we just execute upgrade to R3 and then use the LTS tools. That's a safer approach, and that's the working approach. I hope that one answered your question. We have another question from Nika. And the question is, so the question is as following. So we have a bad experience with LCS tool code upgrade. The process is usually terminated somewhere at 30–40%. Have you encouraged this kind of inconsistency during your experience? Actually, no. I think it's first time I hear, and we have run this LCS tools for 100 of times. So maybe somebody from my team have, but I was not really aware. It usually runs, for us it runs for several hours, and we actually have used this tool for big solutions with thousands of modified and custom objects. And we have not encountered what are you writing here. So I would make sure that you are running these LCS tools on model store that's at least R3 CU8, because that's or was C12, that's the earliest version that's supported by LCS tool. Maybe that was the issue, and if not, yeah, I think you need to contact Microsoft for that, for why it's crashing. But I'm gonna ask my team, and I'm gonna come back with you. Maybe we have actually experienced this, and I'm gonna ask how they dealt with it. Yeah, so I hope that helps. Then we have a question from Anatoly. Hi, Anatoly. So the question is as following: which option would you recommend to perform the solution containing ISVs like LaserNet for voice at sea? Actually, we have upgraded solutions with these ISV solutions, because so these ISV solutions that we talked about, they all have their upgraded versions to finance and operations. So the best approach is to upgrade them. Just in the upgrade, get rid of these solutions in the upgrade execution steps. Don't upgrade the ISV solutions, only upgrade the customer's code, re-implement what's needed, and refactor what's needed to extensions, and then install the new versions from these ISV solutions, because they are available on finance and operations. So I hope that that helps, Anatoly. There's another question from Zviad, and the question is as following. So is there any recommendations from Microsoft about the necessary optional environment list for Dynamics 365 finance and operations? Yes, I think the list is available, and it's well documented in Microsoft Docs, and also you will get the list as soon as you create LCS project. So you have a list of minimum number of environments that you need. So you need at least one development environment, at least one sandbox environment, and of course the production environment. So that's the minimum list. And I think both in Microsoft Docs and also in LCS, there are steps with the environments and with the recommended environments. So you might need extra environments such as for UAT testing, also for golden setups and whatnot. So these recommendations, I think, are quite well documented and are there. So yeah, and they should not be quite hard to discover. So I hope that helps. So I have another question from participants, and it's actually quite a common one that I keep hearing when we do these best path assessments. Is So the question is as following. So are upgrades any different in on-premise and on cloud deployments for finance and operations? So the answer is no. The upgrades are not different at all because it doesn't matter where it's deployed, both on cloud or on-premise. The upgrade path is pretty similar because the code is similar and the data upgrade is similar. So there are not many differences between the upgrades to cloud and to on-prem hosted finance and operations. Okay, as it seems we don't have any more questions, I would like to thank you for participation. And if you feel that you want your solution to be upgraded to finance and operations, but you don't know how to start, how to proceed with the upgrade, please feel free to request our best path assessment for AX through oneclickfactory.com website, or by contacting your OneClickFactory local office to request a free consultation with our finance and operations professional. And with that, I would like to thank you for attention. Thank you for participating, and have a good remaining of your working day.
Same from my side. Thank you all.